Okay, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to embroider from start to finish on the Supreme HD's Prime 1500. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is choose your image. Either you load it in from the USB you got. So once your image is loaded in here, you're going to choose the image, and then you're going to check the size of your actual image. So this shows you the size of your image in millimeters, and this will show you the size of the frame that's needed. So that's your frame size, and that's your job size right there. Okay, so you choose your image, you check your size. Now I want actually my image to actually be a little bit smaller, so I'm going to do a reduction in this video as well to just sort of show you that. So I'm going to use my frame is 140, so I've got to cut this down to size here from 248. Okay, so let's reduce the size from 248 down to a suitable size for this frame. So at the top here you have 4 tabs. The first one, of course, is to choose your artwork, to load in all your artwork as well from USB. You can actually draw in stuff, so kind of you can write your name or write in letters in here. You can do editing and write stuff in there. And in this one here, this shows you sort of, if I hit the play button, it'll start to stitch out and show you how it's going to stitch it and what the stitches look like as well. For now, we're going to exit this, and we're going to change the size of this. So the first tab, of course, we've chosen our artwork. We've got to cut the size down. So now we're going to go over to our second tab at the top, and this is where we can sort of like change the direction of the actual embroidery. So you can kind of spin it around, or you can actually mirror it as well. So this is for mirroring and actually changing the direction of your embroidery. You can change your angle as well if you want to angle it, and then you can scale it. So we want to scale it down. I want to go from 248, and I'm going to scale that down to about 50% so we can fit within the borders. So from here, we just hit scale, our X and Y, and we hit 50. So we'll go 50% of that. 50. And now we've scaled our X and our Y down to 50%. So now when we go over to here, this is sort of where you choose the colors of your embroidery on all your artwork. So let's say let's make it black. So now my Supreme HD has gone black, or I can make it yellow. Oops. So once you choose the color, it'll actually move down to the next color, like the next number for the color. So if I hit maroon here, it'll move to the next color chart for 2. So 5, of course, is the leaf. So I'm going to change that to green. Oops. So I'll make sure I'm clicked on that. I'll change the leaf to green. And now the leaf's green. Go back up here, and I'll change that back to white. So now I've scaled it down, and it's still showing 248 as my size. So until I confirm this, it's not going to actually switch the size. So if I go over to choose my actual frame size here, it's still at 248. So I'm going to confirm. So down here, we're going to confirm that embroidery. So confirm embroidery, that means everything we just did is actually going to be registered into the system. It'll load in, and now the scale has changed down 50% to 124, which now we can fit within the frame. Okay, so let's choose a frame for this one. Now it's already chosen on 140 by 140, but I want to show you that when you put your image in, once you get to this point, if it's 200, whatever, you're going to have to match up your frame, your image size to your frame size. So how you're going to do that is start with this button here. So on this screen here, you've got your 12 presets. So if you hit this button here, these are preset. So they're your 12 presets. The only one that changes here is your J, because that's a universal one that will change all the time. And I'll show you that a little bit later on. But these are your 12 presets that you have. And to actually choose the frame, so you can either choose the preset size if you have one, or, okay, so if you don't find your hoop size here, you're going to go in and push this button here to choose a frame. And now these are presets. So this is A, B, C, D. So if I change, so these don't get changed. These are your presets, and we've already got the frame sizes and labeled to the frame. So all your frames are labeled A, B, C, D, and of course it's corresponding with this A, B, C, D here. So the only one that doesn't, or that changes here, is your J. Like I said, from the last 12 presets. So these are your presets. The only one that changes is J, and that's the one that's universal for the other frames that you have that are a little bit bigger, and you have more frames than it allows to save. So J, we're making into universal. So what you do is you so go over and get your frame. So in this case, so it comes with a bunch of frames. You can store them however you'd like, and on the frame, on each hoop, they are labeled. So this one is labeled I. So I would just go over to here and of course choose hoop I, and it's 80 by 80. And at the bottom it shows you as well, I, length 80 by 80. Your X and Y is 18 and minus 56. But again, so this is my hoop I. So when I grab this hoop, I'm just gonna go into here, hit I, and then hit check mark. And check mark. And now your machine will move to adjust to this setting. But that's not the one we're using. I'm just using this as an example. So that's how you would choose that frame. But in this case, we're going to have to actually, I'm going to actually center a new frame, one of the frames that are on the universal. So you have A to J. So anything, so on the frames, we've made J, K, L, M, N. So anything that's after J is your universal hoop. So like for instance, this one here is S, and some of the sizes are actually written on the frames themselves. So this one here shows 140 by 140. 140 by 140. And now I'm going to recenter this one and redo this one because it's on J, it's universal. So I'm going to show you how to actually center this to make the frame center for every single. So the process that I'm about to show you is for every single frame that's universal, you're going to do this process. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is set our bars in place for the hoops. The best way to do that is to grab the hoop that you're sizing, putting in place. Make sure that this square is at the bottom and that the U is at the top, so it's always going in this way. So then you put these ends on. Make sure they're clipped into place and they fall into place properly. Again, on each side. Make sure it clips in and kind of falls into place. So once you have that set, now you're kind of following through the center of your frame or your hoop to the center of the embroidery machine needle there. So kind of just bring it straight, follow through straight until these back pieces here hit the back bar here, and it'll kind of give you your alignment where they got to go in. And then once you get your setting, so with some of these aftermarket ones, one or two of the actual bolts have to come out of this here. So with this one here in particular, I've got to take this one and this one out. So let me just do that now, and then we'll put this into place. Okay, so I've taken out the 2 screws that I need to get this secure in place. Do not lose the screws. Have a little screw jar or something, or a bolt jar where you don't lose them. And then once you have those off and it's ready to go, just slide that into place on each side. sure it's nice and taut right to the back. And then you're going to tighten down the bolts with your Allen key. So when you're tightening it, just get it to a taut point where it's taut, and then just give it a little extra. Don't go flexing hard, just give it a nice, so it's nice and firmly in place. You don't want this to move while it's embroidering, so give it some nice firmness, just not too much. Okay, so of course we did one, we're going to do the other. So just make sure that this here is in the bottom, like that, in place. We're going in this way with the U, box at the bottom. Put these on, make sure they snap into place properly so they're secure when it's embroidering. Now we got it secure. Put it into place. See what bolts have to come out to get it to go in correctly. And then take those bolts out. Alright, so we just get this one in place. Doing the same thing that we did on the other side. Is get it into the groove, get it back nice and taut, make sure it's pushed back, make sure it's nice and straight. And then of course, tighten down the bolts at the back with the Allen key. Okay, so now we have our frames or our hoops securely in place and where they're supposed to go. So what we're gonna do from this point now is we're going to center these and create the frame for it. Of course, it's J, it's universal, so we have to change some of these frames. This one is S, it exceeds J, so anything over J is universal on your frames. So J, K, L, M, N. Those are indicated on your frame or your hoop, and then this is what you're gonna have to do with every single universal frame. Okay, so we got the frame set in place. We go back to our control panel here to make sure that we click on hoop J, and then you go down to this button here with the crosshair on it and the finger. It'll say seek frame origin, which is the original position. So that's what we're going to do, is click on that. Your machine will move. It's going to kind of climb over the frame and stuff funny, and that's because we need to center it. Okay, so now we're going to create this frame centering on our screen here. So after you've centered to the original position, then what you're going to do from this point is you're going to use this control panel here to kind of move around. So it kind of goes up and down. So up and down, of course. Move your machine up and down, left and right. Of course, move the frame left and right. So what we're doing here is you'll notice that on some of them are different. They have markings though, like this one here has the tabs here. So these are the center of the frame. So the first thing you want to do is we're going to take this one here and we're going to line it up and center it right here where the needle drops. So all you kind of do is just kind of move left and right on here and then bring it down. And again, just touch it. Now, if it's on, so this is like a fast forward button and a play button. So this actually slows. So if I hit play, it'll slow this down. So now when I move it, it kind of creeps up to it so I can get my real adjustment perfectly. So then what you're doing, of course, is you're making sure that this piece here is center to this hole. You can also push down on the needle to see if it's centered as well. So once you have your centering here on this part, then all you're gonna do is go down relatively to the center. All you're doing from this point is pushing up and down. So just push up. We can go a little bit quicker. So just push fast forward to get it to the center. Okay, just kind of relatively find it, like the center. And what you're looking for here is you can use this needle now as a guide. You don't want to go left and right anymore because we already have that adjustment. So all we're doing from this point is going up and down to get the next alignment. So in order to get that alignment, we're just going to keep going up and down. And now it's going quick, so I want it to slow down. I want it to creep up on it. So you want it to creep up to that needle. And then you can just pull the needle down and just make sure it's lined up with the center. That needle is lined up to the center of that hole there. Okay, to the center of this. So once you have that lined up and centered, over to here. So this is where you come in. So now we've got our centering. So now your frame length and width on your universal will always be different. So this one was 140 to 140, but you're gonna look for the size. Again, it's either written or stuck on there. We got 140 by 140. So you're gonna wanna make sure that your frame length is that. So you click on it, we'll go 140, and just re-enter it, 140. And then your frame chafer, just leave it at 15. Or to default. If it defaults to itself, just leave it to whatever it is. And then when you're finished that part, so I didn't put it in 140, I put 14 by accident. So just make sure again, before you hit the save button, we're gonna make sure the length and the width are correct. So I put 14 by accident, I'm gonna write 140. So now I got 140 by 140. We found, so this is the new X and Y. So then just hit save. And after you hit the save button, hit the check mark and then hit check mark again. So now from this point here, we're gonna choose an image, our image. So we're gonna load our image in and just push, oops, exit here. Okay, so once you go back, then you're actually gonna choose that frame. So once you've created it, you have to actually choose it. So you click that button there, and it's Hoop J, the universal one that we just created. It's 140 by 140, so you select it, make sure it's highlighted, and then hit check mark. And yes, it will of course move the frame to adjust to that setting. So now we're centered. And now it's gonna show the image. Now as you can see here, the image sort of exceeds the frame. So what you're gonna wanna do here is use these controls. Again, if I push the fast forward button, I can move that image around a little bit quicker. So you just wanna move it and make sure that it's within the frame. So when it's outside the frame, it of course is red. And then once you enter inside, once your image is within the frame, then it will turn white. And that means that you're within the perimeter of the frame and your needle will not hit the side of the frame. So in the middle where that red dot is your center, and that crosshair within your image is the center of your artwork or your image. So what I'm gonna do is, you can either move it, you can creep it up there, or you can just hit this button here, and this will just move the design to the actual center. So now it just moves itself right to the center. So once we have the centering done, or wherever you'd like that image, as long as it's white and it's within your frame, however you're putting it, then you're gonna hit this button here. And what this does is like a dry run. So you press on this, and then you're gonna watch here, and you're gonna just make sure it stays, this first needle stays within the frame, and it doesn't exceed here. So if it starts to climb over here, you know something's gone wrong. But you're just making sure that when you click on this, it's gonna pretend that it's actually embroidering it. So it's gonna move this around and show you that whether it's going out or inside the frame. So let's hit the check mark on here. I'm gonna leave it panned onto the frame, and I'm gonna hit the check mark. So as you can see, it's staying within the frame. As long as that circle there in the middle stays within the frame, that means your needle's not gonna go outside of it or hit the frame and break. Okay, so from this point here, we're ready to embroider. So now we got to take these frames out. We're going to put some t-shirts in there, and we're going to make some shirts. So I'm going to show you guys how to actually put it in place and then put it back into the machine, and let's do some embroidering. Okay, so we're going to set our shirts in there. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to check the size just to make sure. So what I do for placement is I use green painter's tape, and I actually measure the size. So you can exit this screen, just hit the back button, and then from here, again, this is your frame size, 140 by 140, which we just did, and then this is our image size, 124.4 is the width, and then by 12.9, but we're gonna go with width. So you always do the width. So get your caliper out, or whatever tool you have for measuring millimeters, and then you just set that, of course, to 124.4. Okay, so once you get your caliper set, or again, whatever tool you're using, this is set to 124.4. Then what you're going to want to do is I just got a piece of green tape, kind of just lightly affixate it to the table. I'm not pressing it down, I'm just kind of lightly putting it across. And then you can just set, so I set this across. So I've got my 124 here, and then I'll just firmly hold this down, and I'll just cut across one side and cut across the other. And now I've got my 124 right there. So you kind of just pick that up. And that is the size of the image right there. Not in height, but of course in width, which we need. We need to know how long it is there. Okay, so I got the two shirts that I'll be doing here. I got my frames ready, and I've got my tape cut to the size of the image we're going to be placing for embroidery. So we have your guider or your ruler. So you just kind of set that up. Right to the top of the shirt there. You set your guider up, and then you take your image. So that's our image. And then you're just going to find your placement on your guider. And then once you find your placement there, just remember the numbers for each and every other shirt that you do. So this one begins at 3. So of course, I'm going to take the ruler over to the other one. I've already pre-cut another piece of tape to the size of my image. I'm going to line my ruler up. Take the image, cut to the same size. The beginning of it starts at 3. And there we go. Now I know both of these are in the exact same spot. So now before I put my frames into place, you need backing. So you grab your backing, and then you're going to cut it to the frame size, exceeding it a little bit. I'm going to show you that now. So we're going to cut 2 pieces of this to the size of the frame, or exceeding it a bit, for our shirts. Okay, so for this part here, you'll need a pair of scissors. And what you do is just get your backing, find the one corner. So kind of line it up to the outside here and here, so that it exceeds the frame. You don't want it to be exactly to the frame size, because when you push this in, then you're going to lose some of the backing potentially. So I like to just keep it exceeded outside of the frame, and that way all the backing stays in place the way we have it. So what I do is I take the corner and I'll line up this side with the top side, and then once I get that lined up, then all I do from there is cut across. So you're going to cut down to here. And of course, finding the end where it ends, and then coming up the other side. And so once you have your first one cut, all the rest should be the same size. So all you're going to do from that point is just take another piece of your backing, match up the last one you just did, and then cut it out. Okay, now I got the 2 backings, so now let's get our shirts prepped and ready for embroidery. Okay, so we have the backing cut for each one now. There's also a super stabilizer that we will put on afterwards, and that actually goes on over the front. But we'll worry about that after we get to the placement. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is grab your frame, What I like to do to just make sure I'm putting it in correctly every time is I just kind of hold it to it. You're going to pull out the bottom piece. There's like a little tab here you can push down on, and it sort of separates it from the magnet. So you just pull that off. I put this aside because I'm going to pick it up the same way I put it in. So I'm putting it in this way, and then when I snap it together, I'm going to be picking it up the exact same way I just took it apart. So all I do is just take this out. I'll place this here. And now this has to go up like this. So then you just lift your shirt carefully, just slide it under. What I like to do is hold the shirt up, and then just hold the frame to the top, and it sort of, the bottom stays down for the most part, and then you just sort of slide it across. And you can kind of see the frame within the shirt as you're going, and that's why I'm kind of pressing up on the shirt a little bit so I can kind of see where it is. And then what you want to do is just get it to the center of that frame as best you can. And now you can kind of let go of the shirt and the frame. Okay, so from this point now, we're going to want to put the backing in. So you take your backing, we've got it centered, we've got everything in place. So when you're putting the backing in, just make sure the frame and this doesn't move from here. So kind of, again, just lift up carefully on your shirt. You can kind of pinch your backing and kind of pull it up with it. So what I'm doing in here is just pulling it up, and then I'm just going to pull it sort of to this point here, and then just let go of it when I'm inside the shirt. That way it's not going all over the place, and it sort of stays relatively straight. So just kind of, sometimes you might have to put both hands under and just get it, just make sure that that frame doesn't move. Get it over it. I'm holding the frame and the backing at the same time, so it doesn't move anywhere on me. I'm making sure that the backing is exceeding all around the frame. Okay, I got my backing on, it's all around. Now after you get the backing, again, just pull back ever so slightly, make sure you're still centered. Feel both sides of the frame. You may need to adjust a very slight bit. It may have moved, so just again, before you actually stick it down, you really want to make sure that your backing is on, that you're centered to your image on your frame. Okay, so once you have that centered, then you're ready for the stabilizer to go on top. So before you put the stabilizer on, pull off the tape carefully without moving. So I'm holding down on the shirt so it doesn't move at all. Then gently let go and just flatten it out. And then of course, put on your stabilizer. So when you put this over, just ensure that it is exceeding your frame. So just feel around. I know there's that much on that side of the frame. I'm feeling down here. There's about the same. Over here, I got that much. And over here, I got that much. So I know I'm exceeding my frame now. I'm centered. Taking off the tape. So now what we're gonna do is lock it in place. So again, just hold it over and come down, push down on it. And again, if there's any wrinkling, if you see any wrinkling or anything happening within the shirt, again, just hold on the frame and tug back, just ever so slightly. And you should be able to get those little wrinkles or little niches out of there. Okay, and this one's ready to go in the machine now. Okay, so we have both frames on, backing's on, stabilizer's on the front, we're locked into place. These are ready to go into the embroidery machine, so let's do that. Just going to grab your whole shirt from the bottom and bring it over. Okay, so once you're at the machine, you're going to want to lift it up. Now you're only putting the top half of your shirt in. So you're going to want to make sure when you're putting it into place that the back of the shirt is underneath here. I'm going to give you a different angle when I put in the next one. So the back of the shirt has to go under here, and then the rest of it goes on the top. And then again, you're sliding it into place. making sure that as you're putting it in, kind of just go along, make sure nothing's getting caught underneath or folding back, and then push it into place until it locks. And then once you have that first one locked into place, move on to your second. Okay, again, I got my whole shirt here. Gonna make sure that the back stays underneath, so that it's just going right onto the top of the shirt only. If you put it in like this, it's gonna embroider your whole shirt together. So you want to make sure that there's that separation. So make sure it's going underneath, keeping your backing, everything there. Line it up. And again, as I'm pushing it in, I like to just hold back here, make sure nothing's folding in, make sure the shirt's not getting caught up on anything. And then as I slide it back, I just use my other hand and go back with it until I'm locked into place. Oops, I didn't get under the first one there. There we go. Okay. So get under it and slide it in until it clips into place on each side. There. All right. Now I just kind of go around. Just make sure there's nothing caught up on the sides. It's nice and loose. It's falling loose here. Nothing's folded in. Okay, so I got that one done. And this one we did earlier. So now we are ready to embroider these two shirts. Okay, so just before we hit the start button, I'm just going to make sure all the thread is run properly and that we are ready to start the embroidery. So make sure all your thread is run through your needles correctly on both embroidery machines. And then once those check out, okay, thread is good. So there's there's toggle switches. So you gotta turn your machine on. So click the first one on, click the second one on, and then hit your red button. Okay, so we're all done embroidering. And now it's time to take them off. So when you're pulling them out, just lift up a little bit and then start pulling out. Just making sure nothing's getting caught or tugged on as you pull out. Just pull it straight out. And the other one, straight out. Making sure nothing's getting caught. And then we'll take our frames off. Okay, so once you have, you can kind of hold down on the one side I'm pinching like the backing and this and the corner of the actual frame inside, and then just pull it apart. At this point you can reach underneath, grab your backing out. Now you can just tear this off. All right, so take the stabilizer off, it just sort of rips off. And anything left in there will come off in the wash. So whatever you can't kind of pick out will come off, will just dissolve in the first wash. With this one in particular, I did the tape. I just wanted to see how it worked with tape. So I'm just going to try to pull the tape off and see how that reacted there. So I would probably just, you don't need the tape, I would leave it off. It just seems to be more of a nuisance than anything. So any loose threads though, so you might have the odd loose thread, just grab your scissors and just cut those off accordingly. And we'll snip that. I'll pick this off after. I'm just going to leave that for now. So we're going to move to the actual backing. So then you get to your backing here. And what you want to do is sort of just fold back on the first half here and just cut around it. Cut around it. Like that. You can even pull the whole shirt inside out to sort of get to it. So what you're doing is you're cutting around your image. So just cut around it. Watch you don't cut your shirt when you're doing this, of course. Just cut around your image. And just get as tight to the image as you can. And then you can leave it like that. Put the shirt back right side in. And of course we'll take the green tape off that one. So let's do the other one. Get this one over here. Take the frame out. Again, just tearing off. You just tear it off. Like that. Get your stabilizer gone. And then again, move to the back. Just flip it inside out for a sec. And just cutting right along the edge of the actual image. And once you get the back cut, fold it right side in. And there is our finished Supreme HD. Now you'll see that some of that stabilizer is inside the letters. Again, that comes off in the wash, on your first wash pretty much, and that'll be gone. There's your shirt, fold it up, ready to go.